have you heard of the term one step forward, two steps back?
I have heard of that term. Very famous term.
Well, there's a chance that this may be applicable for today's video, because today we're both talking about Dead Space 3. We're taking it off the ice, we're dusting it off, and we're seeing if this game still holds up in the year of our Lord 2025. So to anyone new to this series, so we are going through the Dead Space trilogy at the moment, and we're capping it off with Dead Space 3. Of course, I have a lot of thoughts about this game because it is certainly different than the first two games, but make sure to stick around to the end of this video to hear our final verdict of the game. But for the meantime, let's quickly go over what this game is about, David. So hold on, Spider Monkey, we've got ourselves a love triangle in this game.
This is the face of a killer, Ella.
So Dead Space 3 follows Isaac Clarke and John Carver as they journey to the icy planet of Tau Volantis, the supposed homeworld of the Markers, and in a desperate attempt to uncover the source of the necromorph plague. In this game, Isaac also reunites with his old flame Ellie as they battle cultist, frozen horrors, and visions triggered by the Marker influence. And this game basically unravels the truth behind humanity's repeated outbreaks, and they face a final chance to end the cycle of destruction for good.
Or do they?
Ooh, dun dun dun.
Dun dun.
Well, let's just share our thoughts on the story and setting, and perhaps as characters first up, David. So this is a game. This is a game for sure. So let's just start off with you, David. How do you feel about this game?
You know, like overall, or just story content wise?
Let's focus on like the story and setting for now, I guess.
Dead Space 3 is definitely a unique game in the trilogy. To me, I will say the story is kind of the weakest out of 1 and 2. You know, Dead Space 1, we had to try and find Nicole and survive the outbreak. Dead Space 2 was trying to survive the outbreak and stop the outbreak and spread on the station. Dead Space 3, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I found it was a struggle for me to connect with the story. Mainly because this game really does feel like it has an identity crisis.
Okay.
Especially with the way it unfolds. Look, I do like the idea of, you know, Isaac being on the planet where the Marker originates from and discovering that. But to me, it was a struggle for me to get through the story, I'm not gonna lie. Especially with the gameplay and how it's more of an action-focused kind of side.
Okay.
Really didn't connect with it. Really didn't feel passionate to move forward. I don't know if that's just me. What about you? What do you think of the story?
I think what's really interesting about this game is that I tried to play a lot of this game towards the latter half of the week before our recording, so that way everything is fresh in my mind. But I'm honestly kind of struggling to remember a lot of stuff that happened in this game because I feel like nothing really...
It's not just me.
I just feel like nothing really stands out. It's like, dude, it's...
I have market dementia. I have market dementia.
I will say that to give it credit where it's due, so, you know, the intro cutscene actually explained everything that I needed to know about Dead Space in the story so far, which was nice. And it actually filled in a few question marks that I had about, you know, both the Unitologists and the government, what they're wanting to do with the Markers, and basically leads us straight into the current situation where there's basically an all-out war with the Unitologists, which is led by Danik. And, you know, after a brief, like 200 years earlier, kind of like a prologue or whatever the fuck you want to call that. Another plot point, I guess, in this game is that Isaac and Ellie have been in hiding since the events of Dead Space 2. And in turn, Isaac went basically no contact with Ellie, which led to her moving on with one of the world's most annoying characters, which is Robert Norton.
Oh my God.
And it's just, this game introduces like this love triangle element to it. And I was just like, what the fuck are we doing here? And, you know...
Can we talk about my dead girlfriend again? Can we go back to that?
Oh, man. It's just... I feel like this game has good ideas, but it's just all over the place. And kind of like what you were alluding to before, Dead Space 1, it's like this really tense horror game where, like, very atmospheric. You're trying to see what the fuck has happened with Yoichi Ishimura, and then the second game you're trying to literally just survive this outbreak by the skin of your teeth, or skin of your nose, whatever the saying is. And with this game, it's just kind of like...
teeth.
But with this game, it's just kind of like, well, how do we do the necromorph thing? How do we do the necromorph thing again? I know. We'll take the fight to the necromorphs in the sense that, like, and to be fair, I like that. I like that idea where
it's a cool premise.
Yeah, so it's like Isaac is trying to stop the marker and the necromorphs at the source. It's a great idea in theory, but then this game just stumbles with its execution and presentation. And I think the perfect example of my issues with this game is that, let's look at the snowy planet of Volantis, or whatever it's called. So you have something interesting happen in the game where you crash land onto this snowy planet, and you need to be very careful about temperature. You can't be outside for too long, and you stay close to fire. It's a really interesting gameplay mechanic and premise. I was like, okay, this is cool. This is actually like spicing things up a little bit. I actually have to be really careful here. But then within like 20 minutes, the game just takes this element away from you. It's like, oh, you got a new suit now. Cool. So it's just like, okay. I feel like this game just continuously just implements all these different things. And because it's trying to implement all these different things to appease, I don't know, appeal to the broadest possible audience, it actually ends up just appealing to no one. And it just
100% agree. You said it so well right there.
It was just a really frustrating experience for me. And a lot of my gripes, I'd actually say, are more with the gameplay and the mechanic side of things. But one thing that I do like, to try and balance this out as best as I can, I think the voice acting is great. I think especially with Ellie and Isaac's voice actors both reprising their roles, and you can feel the chemistry and their interest with each other, and you know, them bouncing off of each other is really great. And I also think that the implementation of Carver and the idea of co-op is actually really interesting as well. For those of you who haven't played this game, Carver, he's basically this military guy. He's all fucked up because he had to kill his wife and son after they were turned into necromorphs. So he's got his baggage. But what's interesting about this game is the co-op. Neither of you and I played the co-op version, I'm assuming anyway. But this campaign, what I love about it is that it doesn't feel like it's designed to be a co-op campaign. If I wasn't made aware of the fact that there was a co-op option, I wouldn't have been able to tell, because the game doesn't pit you in.
That is true.
The game doesn't pit you in with like a constant, like, you know, second AI buddy. If you're playing solo, the story itself works as a solo story. And the only times occasionally kind of stood out to me that the story was a bit janky because I was playing solo is cutscenes where Carver would just seemingly pop up out of nowhere, and you can kind of tell that like Isaac and Carver have meant to have bonded or something, or like, you know, they're getting along fairly quickly despite Carver never being like in the picture. But I just thought it was a really interesting premise on how they executed it. It's like, you can do this whole thing with co-op and the presentation would be slightly different with Carver popping up and all that stuff. But you can also play it solo and it does still feel like a proper solo game. So I thought that was really cool. Do you have any other thoughts on like the story, the characters, the people, or anything like that before we move on to the gameplay?
Pretty much what you said is pretty much nail on the head. I have played a bit of it in co-op with a friend a few years ago.
Okay.
And I feel like it is more enjoyable when it is co-op, especially because co-op is drop in and drop out. And when it's drop in and drop out, I always give a game a plus, because it's nice to have a seamless co-op experience where you can just have someone join, and it is fun to verse the necromorphs when you do have a friend next to you. However, you know, as I said earlier, this story is, like I said, to me, it's the weakest. Even though I played most recently, it was a struggle to get through, and it was very forgettable, as well as the main antagonist, Danik. Very forgettable. Yeah, he was very, very forgettable. I thought Tenement was a forgettable villain in Dead Space 2. This guy is just... he's just there. He's just bad to be bad. You know what I mean? I felt like he was just there to have an antagonist. Like, I understand, like, he's a Unitologist, but I just didn't feel like his goals, or you understood why he was doing the things that he was doing. So yeah, to me, the story was a little bit of a letdown while replaying it. I did try to give it an open mind, but it just rubbed me the wrong way, I guess.
If the bar wasn't set so high from the previous games, especially with the leap from Dead Space 1 to 2, I think that it wouldn't be as disappointing. And if anything, I'm actually surprised that people didn't shit on this game a lot more when it first came out, because I went back and watched a few reviews of it just out of curiosity, and a lot of people will say, oh yeah, you know, it's Dead Space as you know and love it, but it's a little bit more action focused. But I'm like, no, it's worse. It's worse in every aspect, and the action doesn't even feel good in this game. It actually feels worse, which I guess we'll just start talking about the gameplay. But something that you actually mentioned before, which kind of got me thinking when you were talking about, like, you know, shooting off necromorphs like with a co-op buddy or whatever, it made me think, because one thing I noticed about this game is that when this game sends like hordes, like waves of necromorphs at you, it feels like they just send wave after wave. They just don't stop for a while, and it feels like there's an issue with how many enemies like spawn in. And I wonder if that's because it's originally designed for co-op in mind, so that way there's enough like enemies to mow down per person. So I wonder if that's a balancing thing there. But let's move on to, I guess, maybe some of the presentation and, well, the gameplay, I guess. I'm just going to go through a bit of a list here because I don't think that there's like a real seamless way to be able to tie this all together. So first of all, straight off the bat, I hate the font. I don't know why, but it feels cheaper and more dated. They've got this like, I don't know, this impact regular, like this like squashed kind of font.
They went Comic Sans, never go Comic Sans.
It doesn't feel cohesive with, it feels like they tried to change ever so slightly the design of basically everything in this game. Like the suits look kind of different. Obviously they would because it's like set on like a snow planet, but everything looks, even like graphically, like I don't know why, but this game actually kind of looks worse to me than Dead Space 2, when Dead Space 2 came out 2 years prior. But the bench and weapon system has been overhauled, and I feel like it's for the worse. I feel like the whole bench system is really convoluted. I don't know, just they overcomplicated something that was already kind of in my opinion, a bit of a flawed system within these games. I think there's way too many weapons now, and none of them really feel all that memorable. I never really felt inclined to, you know, make sure I get all my salvage up so that way I can make all these different types of weapons, because as far as I'm concerned, I was just like, holy fuck, like I just don't know what I'm looking at.
It is a bit confusing and overwhelming. I will agree with you on that.
It is, man. It's just too much now. And I'd say that the enemy AI in general, it feels off. Just the way they behave is just different, and they also feel like the dismemberment system feels less responsive, and the enemies just feel like bullet sponges in this game. Like in the previous games, I could just aim at someone's limbs, pop their legs off within 1, maybe 2 shots, and there was strategy there. That doesn't happen in this game. I have to shoot someone's legs like 5 or 6 times before they finally pop off, and then like, you know, 1 or 2 more times in the head. That's just not fun to me. Increasing an enemy's life just so that way, like, you know, oh, it's longer to take them down, there's more of a challenge. That's not fun. That's not what I
100% agree.
I don't think that's fun. This game is also a cover shooter, kind of, maybe?
Yeah, it's very a light integration of a cover shooter, which is bizarre in itself.
Yeah, for one moment, a fleeting moment, it's like, by the way, did you know you can crouch and you can like duck behind cover? And I never used that feature again. I was just like, okay, this is just like so half-baked and half-assed. And also, let's talk about audio as well. Everything is loud. The directional audio with enemies feels non-existent. Sound is so important with Dead Space games because trying to hear
atmosphere.
Yeah, you'd hear the direction that they're trying to come at you from. But in this game, I'm just going to use a random example here, like nothing specific, but let's just say I'm in an open room in this game and there are 3 necromorphs and I have only seen 2 of them. The other one is somewhere out of my line of sight and I've killed 2 necromorphs, but I can still hear the 3rd one in this big room somewhere as if it's like right in my ear, and the volume level of that necromorph doesn't increase or decrease depending on the direction or depending on how close or far I am from it. It's just the same volume. And I don't know how we arrived at this in this game, the 3rd iteration, when it already nailed it in the first game. I don't know how we're here. It's just frustrating, man. It was so... The more I played the game, the more angry I got because I was just like, how are we here? I was so disheartened. And if I can like compare this to another franchise, this game to me feels like the jump from Gears of War 3 to Gears Judgment, or say Ratchet and Clank 3 to Ratchet Gladiator. It's like, it wears the skin and it's got the name of the same series, but it's just completely different.
It's like I said, it's that identity crisis, and it's so jarring to come from Dead Space 1 and 2 to this because it feels like a whole entire different game at some points. Like the cover mechanics, I don't know why is my cover mechanics in this game. I don't know if they're trying to implement a Gears of War style kind of cover mechanics. And you are right, it's half-baked, it's weird. It is janky and it's weird to get into cover. The weapon crafting is just very convoluted and confusing, and just feels, I just wanted back the old school way where you just had the node system that just made more sense. The enemy AI, God, I'm so glad you mentioned this. And I don't know if it's different because this game was designed to be co-op-minded, which is why it's why the AI is a little bit stupider or just weird. It could have been, maybe it's better to be designed for 2 people to play it. And it's honestly just disappointing. It really is disappointing because they really nailed the formula in Dead Space 2. Like Dead Space 2, they had everything ticked and gone for them. It was perfectly baked. It was perfectly designed. And this game, I don't know if it's because EA wanted to push us out the door half-baked, which, to be honest, wouldn't surprise me. It just feels like it's all over the place. It was really hard for me to play it because you are right. The more I played it, the more annoyed and disappointed I got with it, because it's not the Dead Space I fell in love with 1 and 2.
No, exactly. I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to shit on the game, but it's just like, even visually, like the characters look like they've got less detail. The enemies, like the necromorphs, look like brown blobs. Like they just look worse now. Like everything just looks worse. So I don't know. I don't understand what happened, and I don't know if maybe it's not uncommon for massive developers to have multiple different studios, so maybe it was like a different studio that looked after this game. I don't know, but it just feels completely different. But maybe stepping away from I guess the negativity or whatever, are you happy for me to kind of talk about the ending or talk about the rest of the story real quick?
Yeah, please do. I'm very excited to obviously dive into that.
Yeah. So I'll give a bit of a disclaimer, a bit of a heads up as well. I'll have to do a little bit of recapping for those of you who don't play, because I think this kind of better informs my thoughts and feelings. But to cut an incredibly long story short, the whole time Norton is trying to talk Ellie out of this mission because he just wants to go home. Ellie keeps pushing back and Isaac goes along with her. Norton secretly makes a deal with the Unitologist leader, Danik, basically give him their coordinates on this planet so Danik can capture Isaac in exchange for Ellie and Norton's passage home. Danik, of course, betrays Norton, which gets interrupted by a frozen hive mind necromorph. And after that fight, Norton pulls a gun on Isaac, but Isaac pulls harder and faster and kills Norton first. Which, by the way, I'll just quickly say, Ellie goes, "I just don't understand why Robert would try to kill you, Isaac." And Isaac's like, well, he was pushing for you to go home and I was pushing for you to stay and complete the mission. And then Ellie's like, I just thought Robert wanted to be here and complete the mission. And I'm like, are you fucking serious? Like, duh, like he's the bad guy. He was a dick the whole game. And then literally like 1 chapter later, she's like kind of starting to get all over that and she's all over Isaac again. I'm like, all right, Ellie's back. But anyway, so Isaac discovers that the moon orbiting Tau Volantis is actually the necromorph source and not the planet that they're on. The moon is called a brethren moon, which is like a mass of organic life, and it's formed after the convergence events. And Isaac and Carver basically find this device which can stop or recommence the convergence event. And eventually there's a standoff with Danik, Ellie, Isaac, and Carver. Carver gives Danik the device to save Ellie, and the convergence starts. Danik basically gets crushed by rubble, so, unceremoniously just defeated. And Isaac and Carver basically sacrifice themselves to stop the convergence, but not before Isaac smooches Ellie and sends her on her way to save her. And basically the game ends legit. And the game pretty much ends with the Brethren Moon crashing into the snowy planet, and it's assumed that Isaac is dead, with the necromorph marker signal fading, which Ellie identifies from her ship. The end. Or is it? There was some DLC, I believe you got to announce right now. That's right. So this game came out with a DLC, but I was looking into it out of curiosity because I felt like the ending of this game kind of tied things up, but it kind of tied it up in a very unsatisfying way. I wasn't really happy with the ending of this game. And it's kind of like, it made me feel like Mass Effect 3. Obviously that game series is built on choice, but it just didn't feel satisfying immediately. And then they came out with DLC to fix the ending. So I was curious if that was happening here as well. And I might get some of this wrong, but basically that period between Danik reactivating the convergence and Isaac stopping it supposedly was enough time for this Brethren moon to send a signal to the other Brethren moons that are out there, supposedly, which all have arrived at Earth by the time that Ellie gets back to Earth. So it just makes me feel like, why did we go through this game? This whole game just feels pointless to me because the premise of it is like, hey, let's just stop the Necromorphs at the source. We spend the whole game trying to find the source and all that shit. And then it's like, oh, by the way, the planet wasn't the source. It's actually this Brethren moon.
The moon.
And then we end this game thinking, okay, so Isaac's dead, probably, but at least we stopped the source. It's a bit of a, gruesome, unhappy ending, but, we got there. But then this DLC is just like, yeah, but what if there were other Brethren moons? Like,
which makes no sense.
Are they the source? Are they the source? Are they just other moons that are just hanging out there? Like,
it makes no sense.
I understand it. Like, it makes sense. It technically makes sense, but it's just lazy. It just feels so lazy. And had they have gone into this truly looking to conclude this trilogy properly, I think it would have been much more satisfying. But it just, unfortunately, it just feels like they were like, hey, let's just do something and then kind of set up a sequel, maybe. I don't know, maybe.
The one thing I hate, and I talked about this on multiple videos of you, is that when they half-bake an ending, but they try to fix it with the DLC.
Yeah.
It's annoying. It really just shows how much, to me, I feel like this game was rushed out of the gate. Because clearly there was something going on between Visceral Games and EA, where EA wanted to try and capitalize on, one, a co-op shooter, and one, on a Dead Space franchise name, because the sequel did so incredibly well that they pushed these guys to really rush the ending of this game. Oh, this game in general.
So,
and it really does show with the way it ends, as well as with the DLC that ends on a cliffhanger as well.
Usually I would agree with that, but this DLC only came out a month after the release of the game. So one would assume that this DLC would have actually already been completed by the time that the full release of the game came out anyway. So it's like they already had this shit planned. It's not like they released it, stepped back, worked on the DLC, then released it. So it's like,
maybe it was the full game and EA just wanted to cut the ending just so they could make more money.
Who knows? But I think overall, like, even after just explaining the ending, I'm just like kind of left here just feeling like nothing.
Exhausted, just numb and exhausted.
What did I just
what was the point?
Play? Yeah, I don't know. It was weird. But look, David, do you have anything else for the meantime that you wanted to say about this game?
I feel like when you and I play a game that we love, we can talk about it for hours. Go around in circles, talk about how fun we had with this game. And just for this, I have not much more to say than obviously my final thoughts, because spoiler alert, I really do feel disappointed with this game, and all I can say is I guess we can just, move on to the Easter eggs, I guess.
Yeah, well, okay, I was just going to say enough trashing on this game, David, but I say we should lighten things up around here and take a delicious look at some of this game's Easter eggs. And I'll try and keep it mercifully brief as well. So, first up, we've got, I think this Easter egg is a nice little throwback, actually. So, similar to Dead Space 1, this game also has an Easter egg regarding the first letter of each of the game's chapters. So in the first game, if you combine the first letter of each chapter, it would spell out Nicole is dead, which is obviously a spoiler for the end of that game. But in Dead Space 3, if you do the same, it spells out Brother Moons are awake. And I think with the context of the game's DLC, it makes a lot more sense to me. But I thought this is a really nice touch and a callback to the first game, which was, just a really neat inclusion, I think.
Do you know about Nicole is alive?
Oh my god. Dead Space 4, Nicole is back, baby.
And she's angry.
She's bigger and better. Okay, so these next two, I guess I put them into Easter eggs, but to be honest, this game doesn't actually have a lot of Easter eggs that I can find, but these are more just like some kind of like neat inclusions, I guess. So there is an unlockable weapon in this game called the Foam Finger, also known as the Devil
Horns.
The
Foam Finger.
Yeah, so with the main weapon in this game, it's called Bang, and the alt fire being Pew. So to unlock the Devil Horns, you must first beat the main campaign, then you have to play over again with the New Game Plus mode, but have the difficulty set to Classic. Once you beat the Classic mode on New Game Plus, you should have the weapon unlocked. So I just thought that was a really stupid weapon. It looks really dumb, but it's so cool.
They did bring that weapon back for the remake as well, the Dead Space 1
awesome.
remake. So you have to beat it on Impossible without obviously dying. And yeah, you get the foam finger, and Isaac goes bang, bang, and pew, pew with his alt fire.
That's so cool. And then lastly, if you're a fan of the Mass Effect series, David, which I know you are, then you're in luck. Yes. Because Dead Space 3 actually has an N7 suit, which is based on the Commander Shepard's armor in the Mass Effect series. So all you need to do to be able to get this suit is have a Mass Effect save present on your console or PC. And if that is the case, then this suit should automatically be available to you. So yeah, I just thought that was a really cool inclusion as well. I mean, I guess it's another EA property, but who cares? It's Mass Effect, baby.
I mean, it's Mass Effect. My name's Commander Shepard, and this game is not my favorite.
Okay, so I guess that neatly brings us along to the verdict. So David, why don't you let the people know how you really feel?
Dead Space 3 is really, for me, a disappointing send-off to a very beloved game series of mine. It's a slog to get through. It has a massive identity crisis. It really feels like a lot of ideas were half-baked. There are some, little pieces with obviously the gameplay. I mean, it is more of Dead Space. If you love Dead Space 2, you're gonna love, obviously, the same kind of gameplay mechanics that I found here. However, there are just so many issues that I find with the story, with some other choices with what they've done with the mechanics, that just make it really hard for me to say that it still holds up well in 2025, especially since this game was the game that pretty much killed the franchise. To me, if you're a fan of the series and you haven't played it before and you are interested, by all means go play. But for me, I don't recommend this in our year of our Lord 2025.
Yeah, and I gotta say the same thing here. I'm really disappointed by this game because as someone who hasn't exactly played, I played a little bit of 1, haven't played 2, played a tiny bit of 3, and ironically enough, when I first played a bit of 3, I thought it was kind of fun. But after playing the first 2 games, and I guess it doesn't help that we're doing this back to back, like week after week, but man, you can immediately notice the downgrade in quality going from Dead Space 2 to Dead Space 3. It just feels like it was designed by like a different studio and they were just like, here's the tools to make a Dead Space game, here, have fun. So ultimately, I would just say that I can't recommend this. In good conscience, David, I can't recommend this in 2025.
To the people. I can't recommend to the people.
I think that if you absolutely love the lore, one thing that these games seems to do is that, the lore in the first game, it got expanded upon with like the Unitology and stuff like that in the second game, so it kind of makes the world and the scope look bigger. And then in this game, in Dead Space 3, it's like, by the way, did you know that there's something called Brethren Moons? And it kind of like looks like this Lovecraftian shit, and you're like, oh wow, that's kind of cool. But I just
do you like Twilight? Because of love triangle in this.
Yeah,
you're Edward, and the other guy's Jacob, and Ella's Bella.
That Brethren Moon is Bella Swan's dad, the mustache. I don't know. But I think that Dead Space 1 and 2, that was a perfect amount of story. The first game ended with Isaac Clarke being like in a rough spot, and then at the end of the second one, it's like he redeemed himself, and it felt like you had done everything that you finally needed to do. And this was just, Dead Space 3 was just an unnecessary sequel to all that, to try and expand the world even more. Just fucking, you should have left it at 2.
Yeah, leave the man alone. Look how tired he looks.
So I definitely don't recommend that people play this game. However, starting next week, so we put out a poll on the Heaps Good channel, and we asked the lovely, lovely viewers of the channel to vote between Crysis 1 and 3 again, and Far Cry 1 and 3. And it was actually a pretty close poll this time around. So with the Crysis trilogy receiving 43% of the votes, which means that Far Cry, the initial trilogy, 1, 2, and 3, received 57% of the votes. So starting next week, we are going to be looking at Far Cry 1, which I believe is just technically called Far Cry Classic on the console. But yeah, so we're going to be looking into that. I'm very excited because I haven't played Far Cry 1 or 2. I've only played 3. So I'm excited to check out that series. But David, thank you for joining me again. Thank you, viewers, for checking out the Dead Space trilogy. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, whether you like this game or not. If you like this game, I'd especially love to hear your thoughts, because maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm missing something. Yeah. Okay. But I think
Make us whole again.
Make us whole again. Make us whole again.